All right, folks. I've got 3:17, so it's time to kick off. First of all, thanks for joining us this afternoon, taking the time out of your schedule to come to this session on how to leverage low-code, automation, and AI to stay ahead of the data divide. My name is Tom Grucha. I am a product evangelist with Time Extender, and I've got a couple folks with me today. One is Harish. He's a solutions specialist with Time Extender. And later on in today's session, we will hear from Roberto, who is with one of our Time Extender partners, Data Neoshore. He's got a fantastic story about a Time Extender implementation that he worked on that we're going to wrap up today's session with. Now, I've been talking to a lot of people at the booth this week on the exhibition floor, and the first thing people tend to ask me, outside of what is Time Extender, is, well, why the name? Why is it called Time Extender? And the number one thing I can tell you is that the name is pretty literal. The tool is designed to save you time, to automate the menial, manual, low-value coding you have to do every day. Offload that to Time Extender so that you can spend your time, your resources, your energy on more high-value projects, building new data products for the organization. You know, I just saw there was a session before this one on DBA burnout, on how to mitigate DBA burnout. It's a huge issue, right? And that's because requests are still coming in. There's a skills shortage right now. It was the second sentence out of anybody's mouth during the keynote on Wednesday, if you were there. I mean, they talked about it, the fact that we just can't find enough qualified people, and work is piling up, and you've got essentially two choices. Either save yourself time or create more hours in the day. And one thing is possible and one thing isn't, right? Well, before we get started, I wanted to give a little bit of trivia here. Can anybody tell me how many grains of sand there are on planet Earth? Just a rough estimate. That's a great answer. Yeah, lots, sure. I'll tell you this. It's a number I have never heard of, and I actually had to Google it to figure out how to say it. Now, there were some mathematicians at Stanford that came up with this number by essentially estimating like the cubic volume of an average grain of sand and then multiplying it by the length and width of most coasts on Earth. So we can get close, but it's going to be obviously bigger than this. Any last guesses? Can anybody throw anything out?
An undecillion.
That is not a number I have heard of, but that is a great guess.
Billion is 2, undecillion is 11.
Oh, jeez.
One I know.
Well, there are 5 sextillion grains of sand on planet Earth. That is 5 with 21 zeros after it. You can count them, 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 21 zeros. And then this is just a rough estimate. It's going to be way more than that, right? Super overwhelming number. Just seeing that amount of zeros kind of makes me a little bit queasy. Take this into account. Most estimates will say there are approximately 400,000 bytes of data for every grain of sand on Earth. This comes from an article called 25 Interesting Facts About Data Science, published by DataCamp in 2021. That's about half a megabyte for every single grain of sand on Earth. So add those zeros to the end of that sextillion, and yeah, you get a super overwhelming number. So I've got good news and bad news, right? We all know the bad news. There's so much data that we're drowning in it. It's incredibly overwhelming. The good news is that the organizations that can leverage this data to become truly data-driven, to make decisions based on that data, are the ones that are going to win. And the ones that can do it quickly are the ones that are really going to stand out. So this is where we come to the data divide. Hey, Harish, I need you to click back into the PowerPoint.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that.
You're good.
Okay.
When we talk about the data divide, we're talking about the data haves and the data have-nots. The people that can leverage their data to its full extent are the ones that are going to win. And typically, this takes a lot of time and money and resources to do. To be able to be truly data-driven, to produce business-level analytics that you can make sound decision-making on, typically is the realm of the Fortune 500s, right? The people that have the time, money, and resources to set up a dedicated team with silos of expertise on individual data solutions. They are the ones that have typically been able to harness big data.
1 second. Yes.
But we are here today to say it is time to end that data divide. We've talked a lot at this conference about democratization of data. Time Extender is a tool that allows even small, efficient data teams to build a truly modern data infrastructure to support things like analytics and AI, and to do it in a fast and efficient way. You know, we've seen this kind of divide before. Yes, the data divide itself is new, but the way it is playing out has happened before. We've seen this story, right? The digital divide of the late 90s into the early 2000s. You know, the companies that were not able to adapt were the ones that were left behind. And the companies that were able to digitally transform, they were the companies that won. You know, there's a great story about Reed Hastings, the CEO of Netflix, going into Blockbuster early on in Netflix tenure. And he basically said, hey, you know, we'll sell to you guys for a certain amount of money. And you know what Blockbuster did? Blockbuster essentially laughed him out of the boardroom. So he said, okay, fine, we'll keep doing our thing. Well, who's around today? You know, I think, and you can Google this, I think there's one physical Blockbuster store left, and it is in like Anchorage, Alaska. And if you look up pictures of it, it's like straight out of 1998. It's really crazy. I would like to maybe go see it one day. But this digital divide's over because the digital first companies already won. You know, Spotify is a great example. Airbnb's having their problems right now, but Uber's another great example as well. These companies that were simply born digital, they were the ones that were able to conquer the digital divide and thrive. Now this data divide is upon us. You know, with this digital divide of the late 90s, early 2000s, there was a gap that emerged between those who had access to digital technology and those who did not, the digital haves and the digital have-nots. With this data divide that we're now living in, there's a gap emerging, and it's really been established already, between those companies who have access to business-ready data and those who do not. It's not just about access to raw data. It's about actionable data, data that has been transformed and is useful and valuable to the business. Now, whether we're talking about the data divide or we're talking about the digital divide, the underlying barriers to adoption are the same. Yes, it's a different kind of technology, but the same things are holding companies back from fully harnessing the power of the data that they have floating around in their organizations. You know, first and foremost, it does, as of today, take a fairly complex tech ecosystem to build out that fully modern data infrastructure, to have that data cleansed and validated and business ready for analytics and AI. And that complexity has given rise to an industry of consultants that will help you parse this crazy complex landscape of solutions. You know, we're talking about it a lot at this conference, the simple fact that it's hard to find folks that have expertise in these particular data areas. And because we can't find folks with the right expertise, the people that are currently around are becoming incredibly overworked and are highly susceptible to burnout. You know, I read a stat the other day that data engineers in particular, 90% of them would self-report some level of burnout, simply because their backlog is so huge, they're never going to catch up, they're constantly putting out fires. There's got to be a better way to spend that time. Part of this is due to the fact that there are still data literacy barriers between the tech side of the house and the business side of the house. Business goals for data are different from tech goals. And it's that ultimate misunderstanding that creates, you know, a pretty sizable communication barrier. The fact that the business side and the tech side have different goals, they're working in different directions, sometimes pulling at each other. You know, there's a lot of talk of the business side asking for requirements, the tech side builds something. Well, that's not quite right, so we got to go back to the drawing board, and we misunderstood the requirements to begin with because they weren't super clear, and now we have to rebuild something. And then finally, one of the biggest barriers to adoption is the simple fact that when you are dealing with such a high volume of data, that volume involves simply just a lot of risk of hanging on to data that could fall into the wrong hands. So the ability to, at a holistic level, secure the data within your system as well as a part of that overall modern data infrastructure is incredibly important, not even to bring up things like PII or HIPAA or GDPR. Now, that's another layer on top of this that we have to think about as well. Now, as if the data divide wasn't already big enough, right? There is a new divide that is developing, and really it's in prime time right now, and that is the AI divide. But guess what? You can't conquer the AI divide until you conquer the data divide. If you do not have business-ready data to train these AI models on, you're going to get a garbage AI model. Garbage in, garbage out. It's been a saying for 30 years for a reason, because it's still true, and it's true in the age of generative AI as well. In fact, I was having a great conversation with somebody at our booth this week, a speaker here at the conference, that was using generative AI to create PowerShell scripts for her entire data team. She was one data engineer among a sea of analysts. These analysts were constantly making requests, not only for new scripts, but changes to that script as well. And if it was the only thing that she focused on, she'd get nothing else done. So her plan was to take a small language model with ChatGPT, train it on the script she had already written, train it on the data that was in her system. She was able to get those AI bots up and running. Now she can essentially code scripts for 5 different people because she trained those 5 different people to use that generative AI bot. You know, it's that kind of creative thinking that really is the efficiency savings when it comes to using something like generative AI. And that is because organizations that can fully leverage Gen AI are likely to soar past those that cannot. And this should sound really familiar because it's just the digital divide over again, right? History is repeating itself over and over and over here. And it's important to note that Gen AI technology does not appear out of a vacuum. Those small language models in particular are only useful when they are fed significant amounts of data and significant amounts of clean, validated, accurate data to ensure that that Gen AI model isn't going off the rails, right? And of course, yes, if it takes you 6 months to get a bot up and running, you're going to get beat every time by organizations that have the ability to quickly harness their data. This is a prerequisite for competing in today's market. Now I ask you this. In relation to AI, in relation to automation, what are you spending your time on a day-to-day basis? You know, are you just keeping the lights on? How much of your day is spent doing operational tasks, things that really bring not a whole lot of value to the organization, putting out fires, writing manual code, doing things that could easily be automated simply because you don't have a better way? And taking a look at this graph today, you know, I would say if you were spending 20% of your day on creative, new, dynamic, innovative projects, I would be really happy for you. I think that's pretty optimistic, right? So how do we flip the pyramid? How do we get to a point where we're spending less of our day on these operational, hamster wheel tasks and more time doing things that are creative, that are innovative, that require the knowledge and expertise that we've built in our positions? Well, this is really where AI and automation can play together to get you some of that time back, right? Machine learning at Netflix has started saving them around $1 billion, and they hold their viewership data very close to the vest, right? They really don't let anybody see it. And that is because they use that data to make decisions on what shows should be greenlit that are in production, what shows should be canceled, what shows should get additional seasons. They're highly data-driven. And it is machine learning and AI that has really rocketed them past a lot of their competitors. 9 out of 10 organizations support AI for gaining a competitive edge over rivals. This should not be surprising. Everybody's talking about AI right now. 60% of executives are convinced that AI will enhance their companies. Okay, we get it. Everybody's talking about it, right? This is the stat that I felt shocked me the most. Only 35% of businesses have already embraced AI. Well, why is this the case? This is the case because of the data divide. Organizations that don't have business-ready data to train AI models cannot fully embrace AI. So you have to conquer the data divide before you can even start to address this new AI divide. So if you don't have a modern infrastructure in place for data, for analytics, for AI already, essentially you're falling behind. And in 2022, it was large companies that were twice as likely as small ones to use AI. Again, this harkens back to the data divide because typically this kind of robust infrastructure to support analytics was the domain of the Fortune 500 companies, the people that had the time, the money, the resources to build a big team with specialized knowledge to run these complex tech stacks to build a modern data warehouse and serve that clean data to analytical endpoints. So my question to you is, well, how are you going to keep up? What do you need to address first? Do you need to address the data divide? Do you need to address the AI divide? Or do you need to address both? More importantly, how will you flip the pyramid? How will you use the combination of AI and automation to ensure that you are spending much less time on operational tasks and way more time doing strategic thinking, doing creative projects that are actually invigorating, that are complex, and problems that truly only somebody with your time, your resources, your expertise can solve? More importantly, how are we going to bridge both of these divides, again, the data divide and the AI divide, without sacrificing agility or our own sanity in the process? And it's important not to sacrifice agility because, again, yes, if you're able to conquer both divides and it takes you 18 months, you probably already failed because it should be a lot faster than that because I can guarantee that your competitors are going to solve these problems a lot faster than that as well. Now, in order to start bridging the data divide, we have settled on this modern architecture for data integration. It's been established that you build your data lake to bring in all of your raw data from all your disparate sources. That's your staging area. You then move that raw data into your modern data warehouse. This is where your cleansing, your validating, your modeling, your transformation all happen. Then once you're ready to create data products for individual business operations, a semantic layer for sales, for finance, for HR, you do that in the data marts. So how do we build this? Well, up until this point, most companies that have the time, money, and resources have built this using an incredibly complex stack of disparate technologies. And in fact, I found this great article from Humans of Data from last year called The Great Data Debate, Unbundling or Bundling. And this is an incredible quote. Unfortunately, this amount of choice has led to a crazy amount of fragmentation in the data technology stack. I joke about this a lot, but honestly, I feel terrible for somebody buying data technology right now. The fragmentation and overlaps are mind-blowing, even for an insider like me to fully grasp. And here's what that modern data stack looks like today. Now, this should be pretty hard to read. And this is very hard to read by design, because there are a lot of solutions out there that will do everything from infrastructure to analytics to machine learning. Don't even discount all of your ERP systems, whether they're enterprise, they're horizontal, they're industry specific. You've got your open source infrastructure here on the bottom, data sources and APIs, data and AI consulting as well. I mean, it is quite the landscape to try and navigate. Now, don't get me wrong. There can be advantages to working with this modern data stack. You're able to choose best of breed components for each part of your modern data infrastructure, right? But this also comes with a lot of cons we'll talk about in just a second. Now, if we were to completely wipe our minds clean of what the modern data stack looks like, what would a winning approach to building that modern data structure look like? What would be the ideal scenario to build a data lake, to build your modern data warehouse, and to build that semantic layer? What would it look like? Well, first and foremost, we would want that solution to be agile, right? In order to stay fast and flexible. Because the more things stay the same, the more they change, right? Things are changing all the time. Business requirements change all the time. Technology changes all the time. If you're not able to make changes quickly on the fly, well, you're just going to simply be left behind. We'd also want that solution for managing that modern data infrastructure to be unified. We'd want that single pane of glass, right? That's another term I've heard a lot this week. We'd want that one singular application that handles everything end to end, from ingestion to transformation, all the way to delivery to the endpoints. I mean, that's the dream, right? We'd also want this solution to be flexible. And by flexible, I specifically mean technology agnostic. It shouldn't matter if I want to store all my data on-prem. It shouldn't matter if I want to store all my data in the cloud. It shouldn't matter if I want to use AWS or Snowflake or Azure. And I should be able to change underlying infrastructure whenever I need without having to rebuild that entire infrastructure as well. And we'd also, for the sake of efficiency, for the sake of time, for the sake of burnout, we'd want that solution to be low code. Not no code, but low code. To automate so much of the manual, low-value coding tasks that go along with keeping that modern data structure flowing, keeping it up, keeping sources connected, making sure accurate data is flowing to endpoints. And then finally, we would want that solution to also be cost-effective, to ensure substantial savings, right? This would all be great in and of itself, but if it costs a ton, who cares, right? We've already lost, so we want it to be cheap. Well, I've got 3 different approaches we can take, right, to take a swing at what this ideal solution would look like. First and foremost, let's address that fragmented stack of disconnected tools made out of that modern data stack we talked about earlier, right? When you think about agility, the ability to stand that solution up fast to make changes on the fly, not very agile. It's certainly not unified. I would argue I wouldn't even give it 1 star for being unified. It's not integrated in any way, shape, or form, and it's on you as the data team to ensure that those products work together. Here's what I will give that modern data stack, though. It is pretty flexible in that you can pull pieces of the data stack out, replace it with other ones, add new ones over time. It is pretty modular in that way. I'll give it that. It is absolutely not no code in any way, shape, or form, simply because of the amount of manual coding and maintenance that goes along with keeping that fragmented stack working together. And it is absolutely not cost effective because typically to enact a modern data stack, you need an army of developers, an army with specialized knowledge in those individual stack pieces to get them to all work together cohesively. And this is the strategy that many companies have relied on to this point. Now, of course, the next step in the evolution of these solutions is a single stack of tools from one vendor, right? Eliminate multiple vendors, multiple licensing agreements, all the training and support that goes along with 15, 20 different applications to build your modern data stack. Let's simplify that down to one vendor. And I hate using this term. It is a enterprise software staple. I hate this term, but I'm going to say it here. People love having one throat to choke. Please do not choke your vendors. I hate that. I also hate eat your own dog food, and people say that all the time. I much prefer drink your own champagne, so I like using that one a little bit more. But absolutely, you have one point of contact, as far as support and licensing and all that's concerned. However, what platforms typically want you to do is rely on them entirely for the entire data stack. It locks you into their proprietary storage, their proprietary tools, and it becomes incredibly difficult to move off of that platform at any time in the future. That's by design. Just is what it is. Now, the solution we're going to show you today takes a different approach. Time Extender is a holistic data integration solution that's optimized for agility. We will handle everything from ingestion to the creation of your modern data infrastructure to moving data between storage locations, all the way to transformation, validation, documentation, security and governance, everything in between. Everything you need from a single solution and also from a single pane of glass. Because we are handling so much of the coding behind the scenes for you, it makes the tool incredibly agile because you can go in and make changes at any time. Time Extender will write the coding for you. You don't have to worry about it. It is absolutely unified because it is a single solution that has been built from the ground up as a single solution. It's not a patchwork of acquired products that have been put together as a quote-unquote platform. It is also incredibly flexible in that we are technology agnostic. You can store your data in an Azure Data Lake, on a Snowflake MDW, in AWS, and you can change it at any time. We don't really care where you store your data. We will support it. And of course, our goal is to automate as much of that menial, low-value, repetitive coding as possible so that you can run that modern data architecture with a small, efficient data team. Really optimizing your cost savings there. So, before Harish takes us into the software and we get to see Time Extender in action, I just want to give you kind of an overview of what we're going to be looking at here. Now, with Time Extender, we offer universal connectivity with over 250 pre-built data connectors that will connect to your data sources, automatically bring that raw data into your data lake. You can then move that raw data from the data lake to the modern data warehouse. That's where you'll perform your transformations, your validation. That's where you will model your data as well. Once that data is business ready, you can then deliver that data using data products or data marts for each individual business unit, one for finance, one for HR, one for sales, et cetera. And you can take those data products and push them out to your selected, preferred, if you will, analytics tool, whether it is Power BI, whether it is Qlik, whether it is Tableau, raw CSV, and we can switch those endpoints out at any time without having to worry about rebuilding the entire infrastructure, right? On top of that, we layer metadata, so data about your data. And that metadata allows us to provide things like documentation for your project out of the box. How many people write documentation for every project they do, right? And what are you supposed to do? You're supposed to document as you create. Because you get to the end of a big project, you're burned out. What's the last thing you want to do? Sit down and document, right? So why not offload this to the system, allow Time Extender to use metadata to create that documentation for you. We also provide data cataloging and lineage right out of the box because of the power of that metadata as well. So you can trace an individual data object all the way from the endpoint back to its original origin, or the original source. You can see all the transformations that have happened in that data object's journey throughout the entire ecosystem. We also offer end-to-end orchestration, the ability to execute data tasks with Time Extender, and Time Extender will automatically ensure that those execution tasks happen in the correct order based on dependencies, the ability to execute tasks in parallel to save some processing time. All of that orchestration is handled for you by our intelligent engine behind the scenes. So with that being said, Harish, why don't we take a look at Time Extender in action?
Sure.
Yeah. Can we get the stick mic, please? Just want to make sure we capture them for the recording. That's all. Thank you, thank you. I figure this is easier than having it, repeating everybody's question 10 times, right? There you go.
Thank you. So you had talked about data catalog. What does data catalog contain?
Harish?
The glossary of the tables and the sources what you are bringing in, all those details can be there. So what exactly you are looking for in that?
So data catalog, what I was looking at, let's say I want to know about this product. Let's say we want to approach a new business stakeholder who are interested in certain project. Let's say, for example, in healthcare for claims, I want to know about medical claims. What is this about? So could this data catalog contain something business synopsis about the claims, about that project, and some business glossaries, what it means, and
It
just
is
in general?
strictly a list of your data objects,
Okay.
where they are currently contained,
Okay.
and what those objects are.
Okay.
It is a snapshot of your entire, essentially, data estate
Okay.
in one document. I think that's the best way to explain it.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
It gives some summary of the data, like the outliers and some information about that, like the basic
Yeah.
information of that. But anything else, you will have to use your logic to put that in place.
I think that's very helpful.
But the basic thing will be there.
Yes, very basic, but it's all there.
Yeah.
Like the count and the outlier numbers, it will be there. Yeah. Can you give me the clicker?
Yes. Where did I put it? Oh, thank you so much. This is what happens when I run around like crazy. I lose track of everything. I'm glad somebody's paying attention.
Okay, a quick intro. I'm Harish. I'm a solution specialist with Time Extender for almost 2 years now. Almost 17 years in the data industry, working as data engineer, sometimes lead. So it has been a great journey of 17 years. And now enjoying this automation product, Time Extender. So first of all, I would like to thank you guys for choosing this session after a post-lunch. I know it's difficult to concentrate, but thanks for choosing us. And first, let's see the overall architecture before we getting into the technical demo of it. Okay. Cool. So now Tom has talked a lot about the overall stuff, but this is the real architecture, right? How Time Extender works. The main three components is what you are seeing in the middle. You can see in the orange, the operational data exchange. Otherwise, we call it as ODX, which is responsible for ingesting data from more than 250 plus data sources out of the box, right? It's just a configuration inside of Time Extender. So that's the first layer you see there, data lake. And the best part is it can be a data lake, or even it can be, if it is a small scale project, you can build it on a SQL Server as well. So it's all depending on your requirement. You can choose what can be the storage there. The storage and compute is always in your control. Whoever, the customer can decide what can be the storage and what can be the kind of compute they want to use. Then we have the second one, the biggest layer is the modern data warehouse, which, as you know, it's a data warehouse, but as we can use the drag and drop and a configuration approach to build this, it's a much easier way of building a data warehouse using Time Extender. Here as well, the beauty is you can choose the storage you want. It can be a Snowflake, it can be Azure SQL Server, it can be an on-prem SQL Server, or AWS RDS as well. So all this is supported on the modern data warehouse. And one more thing I personally like about that part is it's always easily switchable. If you are like, let's say the customer currently wants to just use an on-prem solution, they can just create an on-prem solution and build everything fine. But later stage, when the customer wants to go cloud, Typically, that's a project, right? Moving to the cloud is a project. But with Time Extender, that's not a project. That's a few clicks. You click, change the configuration, point it to the Azure SQL Server, and it's there. Your data is there, your business logic is there, everything will be moved to cloud just by a few clicks and configurations. So that's one of my personal favorite feature in Time Extender. And then we have the semantic models, where you can create the data marts specific for business units like sales or HR or like that. You can create the relationships, create the measures, everything you can create there. And then you can expose the models created inside of Time Extender to any of these visualization tools. It can be a Power BI, it can be a Power BI Premium Endpoint, it can be a tabular one, it can be Qlik, Tableau. Most of the visualization tools are supported out of the box. The beauty of using this is you don't have to recreate your dashboard and measures again and again. Once you create inside Time Extender in the semantic model, it's saved. The metadata is saved, and then whenever you choose any of the endpoints, it's just going to deploy to that endpoint. Right? You don't have to recreate the measures or the relationships or anything. It's all there, ready for you to be deployed. So that's the overall picture. Okay, and it comes, as it is tightly integrated using Time Extender, it all comes with an end-to-end documentation and end-to-end data lineage. Right? So if you're looking at a measure on the semantic layer, you'll be able to see what all transformations it has gone through up until the ODX. Right? From the source, what all things have happened to that particular column or the value, you will be able to see using Time Extender. Cool. Any questions? Cool. No, let's go ahead. Okay, so when we wanted to do a demo for the PaaS, usually we have a normal, typical demo scenario, but I wanted to do something custom with the Seattle data. So I looked up and found there is a lot of open data available about the Seattle city, right? So one of it is the 911 calls, which is received from 2008. There is data on the Seattle city crime data. There is the police calls available. So all these are available, but none of it is, it is all disparate sources. It is not connected or linked in any way. So that's what we are trying to do, is like show how easily using a product like Time Extender, you can link things and put it together in a 3-tier architecture, right? So for the sake of this demo, we have tried to keep things very simple, small tables, small things, so that we can easily go through it. Okay. So first, let me show you a current dashboard which I have built. Okay, I have the mouse. So this is just a sample data, the dashboard which I have built using one of the sources freely available, which is Seattle City 911 call data, right? It was for the fire department. That's why you see this incident types, and you can see the call count, and just have a look here. It's the source system is just fire department, and it's linked on the fact table of date. So that's how the basic dashboard looks like. Now we will try to add a few more data sources, right? And see how we can do some small transformations and bring this all together into the dashboard. So that's what our attempt is. Okay. Nice. Okay. So the next step is, let's see how you can add a data source and do stuff in Time Extender. So Time Extender basically has two interfaces. One is this web portal where you do all your administration work, right? You can add a new instance, you can set up the storage, you can set up the connection strings. All this part is done from the portal, right? And it also has this place where you create the data sources, the connection strings. So here you can see most of the sources you can think of will be supported out of the box. And if you select something, you will have to give the credentials or the keys and stuff, and you will be easily able to connect it. So this is the interface from where you will do that. I just wanted to show you that. And so this is more kind of the administrative tasks which you do here. And for a data developer, he'll be using the time extender, the desktop UI, which I'm trying to move here. So this is the interface of time extender desktop environment. And what you see on the left is the solution explorer. And remember the three oranges we talked about, right? First was the ODX, right, which brings the data, ingests the data into a data lake, right? That's what you see. Oh, it's difficult for me to see from here. Okay. Okay, I'm guessing this is the one. Okay. Okay, so yes, so this is the data source which is already added. You can see the fire department data. Now let's see how you can add a new data source. I'll just go to the data sources, right click, add a new data source, name the new data source like, let's see. Seattle Police call data is, I just named it like that. And Seattle City data is the one which I have already loaded onto my SQL server so that during the demo I don't have network issues. So just it's on my local SQL server. This source is stored now, so I'm taking it from there. Okay. So you have the option. So once you give a data source, now you have the option to select either everything, or you can select based on your choice, right? From this window, you will be able to decide what columns to bring in, or which tables to bring in, what columns you can choose. You can preview it even before bringing that data into your local, right? So pardon, it's going to be a little slow because I'm having network issues with the open Wi-Fi here, with the IP stuff. So I'm using my mobile hotspot, and it's a bit slow. So bear with me. Okay, so these are the three tables which is already available there. Now I can add all. It will be here. And then let's say if I want to select some of the columns, I can very well do that from here. I can preview the data even before it is brought in. And then I can select from here whether I want to remove that data or not. So everything is easily possible using Time Extender. So I'll just keep it everything as it is now, and then we create a transfer task. What does a transfer task do is connect to the source, whatever we are configuring, and then bring the data and push it to the data lake or wherever we have configured the ODX. So that's what it's going to do. So I'm just naming it transfer all because it's going to transfer all the tables. All tables, yeah. Here as well, you have the option to choose, but I have chosen everything. Now you can see, okay, yeah. Now you can see the transfer all task is here. Now I need to execute this so that the data from the source is now being pulled and moved to the storage where the ODX is configured. That's what is happening now. So this, I would like to show you one cool stuff there. Okay, yeah. So once, this is a data lake which is automatically created by Time Extender when you run an ODX execution task. So it will, by default, create the date hierarchy, the structure, and then by the execution time and date, it will create the folder structure and create the Parquet files for you. So you don't have to open up data lake or do anything. Everything is done by Time Extender, creating it as well as the maintenance part of it. Like if you want to clean it up after a few days, roll it up into a one Parquet file, all these tasks can be automated using Time Extender. So yeah, okay. Cool, that's completed successfully. And now let's look into the second part of it, which is the MDW, data warehouse. So now we are going to bring that data, whatever we brought in, into the modern data warehouse. Oh my God, it's. Shivam, you have to help me. I can't read from here. This one? Right. Yeah, okay. Nice. Okay. So this is the modern data warehouse, which is like pre-built and which was powering the dashboard which you previously saw. Here, this is the table that's powering that. Fact, real-time, FIRE data calls, right? So that was the Power BI dashboard which you saw. Now, let's see how we can bring the newly added tables here. So for that, I'll go to the ODX and do the select tables. Right, now that will come up, okay, let me put it in a logical way. Yeah, so this is the selector of the data sources. And from here, I can select, okay, this is the new guy which I brought in. I can search, and that will bring up all the tables in that source, right? And even you can preview from here, like even if it is a data lake or wherever it is stored, you can preview and see the data. In this case, we already know the data, so what we will do is from this data lake, now imagine this data is in data lake, right? Now what I have to do is bring this data into a data warehouse, which let's say it's sitting on Snowflake. Typically, how will you do that, right? You need to create the scripts, you need to understand what is the structure, define the data types, and then you create the scripts and execute it and build it. It's a time-taking process. Now let's see in Time Extender how you will move a table from data lake to any other storage, right? So call data is what I want to just bring to my data warehouse, and all I'm gonna do is this, drag and drop. Now the table structure, the data type, everything, Time Extender knows from the metadata, and it has implemented on the data warehouse, right, of your choice. Now it's here, okay? Now one more table I can bring in. Let's say, the crime data. Again, it's drag and drop. That's brought in. One more thing we can do now is, please have a look on this table, which is already powering the dashboard. Here, the fire department data is already there, right? You see in this brackets, that's the source from where that data was brought in. That's about fire data. And now, one more I'm bringing in from here. Now, these are two different tables. I'm trying to merge it. Typically, again, if you have to do that task, it's like you have to compare the tables, compare the data types, and then come up with the solutions. But with Time Extender, all you will do is right-click, drag and drop on the table, and you have an option of Smart Synchronize, which looks into your table structure, looks into the destination structure, and decides on a fuzzy logic like, okay, what are the types I can match, and then it matches it for you automatically, right? So you see now the mapping is on both, right? So we have done the mapping. We have brought in a few tables. Now, maybe a few small transformations we can see. Let's say on crime data, okay, type is there? No, date. Date. Report date time. Yeah, okay. So now let's say the report date time, I want only the date, right? Only the date part. So right click, field transformations, okay, report date time. All you need to do is select from the predefined type of transformations. You can write your own custom as well using a drag and drop approach, but here you have, like, I just want to do the only date part. That's done. And on the type, there is a type. No. OK, that's fine. And on the call data, I can do, what is the date? Arrived date, similar time, similar thing I can do so that I can link this data. Field transformations. OK, arrive time. Only date, add, and type. Yeah. So here, let's say I want to make this particular transformation as this field has to be all in uppercase, and I have to trim the data. So again, it's just few clicks here. Let's click on call type, go to upper, done. Then I'll say trim, done. I've done some basic transformations. Now I have to create relationships, right, to make sense of all this data. So for this, simply we have just done on the dates. So let's see how we can create that relationship as well. So here is the dimension date, which is like pre-generated by time extender. You don't need to define it manually. You can just right-click and add, and you can just create a data hierarchy table just like that. Right? So this is one of those tables which I created. So from here, I can pop this up in a new window and close, minimize this. And on the new table, Shivam, I might need your help. Call data, arrive time. So from the date value, I can just drag and drop, add a new relationship. I can just drag and drop to that table, and just like that, it has created the relationship to a new table. Right?
Hey, Harish,
Yep.
2 more minutes. I want to make sure we have time for our customer story.
Oh, OK, sure. We are almost there. So I'll cut short the other stuff. OK. So yes, we are done with those changes. Now, let's remember that the third part is the semantic layer, where you have the business units kind of thing. Let's open up that. So the data marts here. Again, remember this is a tabular model. Now, to create a new column in tabular model or a table, typically it takes, like you need to define those stuff. Again, in time extender, all you need to do is a drag and drop. Let's say, see here, just drag and drop on the tables, and you select what all fields you need, and you can hide, unhide, you can select everything, is all up to you. And fields, yeah, it's none is fine, okay? And similarly for call data as well, I can bring in, I can select everything, just like that, say okay. Okay, I can date here. I can't see from here. Okay, yeah, cool. So we have created the semantic layer just like that. And all these changes are there. Now what we need to do is just do a deploy and execute. So all this has happened even before it is being applied on a storage. From the time extender layer, you are able to do everything even before one unit is completely deployed. So now I'm doing a deploy and execute, which will make sure all the changes is first executed on your database, and then the data is moved as per the logic you have defined. That's what is going on now. So one thing with this deploy and execute is that it's always, one thing to notice is we didn't define at what order it has to execute, because time extender looks into the relationships of tables and identifies in what order all the tables should be executed. So that's what is going on now, one thing. And the second thing is you will see all these colors. That's because it's it's happening is it's an intelligent execution happening behind the scene and making sure there are multiple threads going on to execute these tasks. And it also auto-adjusts based on the time it has taken. Like on the previous run, you can identify and then it automatically adjusts so that always the total time is optimal. So it's an intelligent execution system which Time Extender has. Yes, yes, please. Incremental load you can do from the ODX, right? From the source itself, you can just right-click and say incremental load, and you can select the column, whatever you want to do, you're done. Yeah, and that will be propagated accordingly.
You can schedule these.
Yes, yes. So once you've done the incremental load, and all these tasks can be separately scheduled, right? So again, this is my mobile network in play, so please bear with it. Any questions meanwhile? So while let it execute, I can just quickly talk about one more thing which I wanted to. Yeah, so we have seen a lot of stuff as part of this demo, but I just wanted to mention that there are a lot more which I can't show within this 20 minutes, which is directly supported by Time Extender. All the complex concepts in data warehousing, right? Like a slowly changing dimension, or an incremental load, or a cleanup, or synchronize, and all those surrogate keys. All these tasks are just a configuration inside of Time Extender. It's not like you have to write code for all these things anymore. Everything is a configuration approach here. So I hope the other one is done. Yeah, this is done, so that change has happened. And finally, I have to deploy this as well. This is the semantic layer which we did. So it's always version controlled inside of Time Extender, so you can put the comments and version control inside Time Extender. You don't need an external version controlling system for your project. It's all done inbuilt. Any questions? No. It's done, just the Power refresh.
So you want to do any custom transformations which your product doesn't do?
That's what, it has a window where you can do, there is an option for custom transformation where you will get the typical drag and drop approach as well, where you can select your columns or tables and you can write your normal SQL. So throughout all this level, your normal SQL is supported. You can make your custom transformations there as well. And it's all supported with an IntelliSense as well. Like in Visual Studio, how you write, you can just write inside of Time Extender. Not Python, it's only SQL. Yeah.
It has to be SQL.
Sorry?
It has to be T-SQL.
Yeah, it is always T-SQL is supported inside of Time Extender. No matter what is the source, we are always letting people query it through a SQL, right? And also we can write the custom logic using SQL. It has always it has to be SQL inside of Time Extender if you are writing any custom code.
Yeah, folks, I know we're running out of time, so if
Yep.
you do have to run to another session, by all means, please do.
Oh yeah, done. So you can see that now there is one more data source which is added here, the one which we added, the Seattle Police, right? And you can see the dashboards have changed now. And here you can see all the tables which we have brought in, and you can create a visual right from there. So this was I just created, before. So you can, this was the new table which I brought in with a date dimension, right? So that's how easily you can bring the data from any source and create a dashboard with using time extender. And yeah, I think in the interest of time, I'll leave the rest part. Yeah, I think that's fine. Yeah.
Excellent.
Okay, cool. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, so at this point, we do have a customer story from our partner, Data Neoshore. Roberto is here to share. Just a few more minutes of your time if you want to hear real-life implementation of Time Extender. Thanks for being with us, Roberto, for sure. Thanks for sharing this story. Get the clicker?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
One more. You're good. Should be on.
You can just press the next. Your presentation will come. Yeah. I don't think so.
Okay, so hello everyone, thanks for being here. My name is Roberto Layton. I am the CEO of Data Neoshore. We are a time extender partner of the year for 2022. You might be asking yourself why there is a picture of Seattle and the beach. And that is because 4 years ago when we founded Data Neoshore, we saw the lack of skill set that Seattle companies were having here, and we decided to, we had a vision of creating a nearshoring company based out of Costa Rica, focused 100% on data and cloud projects. So we currently have about 100 engineers fully focused on data projects. And part of the vision was how do we couple not only nearshoring savings plus using tools that have high automation, the impact to the customer would be much higher. So,
Roberto, we have another session coming in at 4:30, so 5 minutes.
Okay. So basically, the project that we executed with a time extender was a major hospital on the West Coast, and they had basically the issue that they had developed a large amount of Power BI development, and they also had over 100 data sources. And this was a key issue because they use Epic, and they needed all the data that was consolidated to be able to be audited, and like Tom was saying, to have data lineage and so on. Leadership wanted to have full visibility of all the processes, patient data, facilities, prescriptions, and so on. And the options that we saw that they were evaluating meant that they needed to acquire at least 10 products to execute this project. What we did was we were able to do the data structuring with a time extenders development environment. We're able to automate the ingestion of the 100 data sources. We built an importable Power BI model for this, so most of the areas could use this importable Power BI model. And also we built a data lake so that the final solution was not only used internally, but it was also the information repository for vendors. And also, we added to this project the nearshoring savings. The top 3 benefits here were basically that an 80% reduction in the implementation time. We were, because of the high levels of automation and the nearshoring savings, we were able to reduce the cost of the project and be on time and under budget. And one of the key benefits that we had was that using Time Extender, we were able to use one product instead of 10 different products. That would mean that we would add complexity to an already complex project. Okay? Does anybody have any questions so far? No? Okay. And so I know we have to go right now, but So as I mentioned, our development center is in Costa Rica, and I don't know if anybody knows what Pura Vida means. So in Costa Rica, we use Pura Vida to say hello, goodbye, thank you, basically for everything. But in summary, what it means is have a positive expression of living a life to the fullest. So with this, I know we're out of time, but
Yes.
thank you very much.
Thank you, Roberto. Thank you so much, everybody, for sticking a little over time. We're going to be at booth 403 in the expo hall, so if you want to ask some questions, have additional conversations, come find us, look for the big red X. We'd love to talk to you, show you some more software as well, and thank you so much for putting up with some of the technical difficulties with the demo as well. Thanks for coming,
That was nice.
everybody.